Hey there sports fans, and welcome to another exciting edition of Small World Games here on YouTube. I hope I haven't built myself up too much with that statement. Today we're going to be starting a new little vlog, and we're going to be looking at my new Blood Bowl team that I'm working on, the Squighorn Stampeders. It's based on the Calgary Stampeders, the CFL team. Inspiration for the name was, well, I spent a couple of years living in Alberta and they were my local team, and Stampeders just seems so right a name for an Orc Blood Bowl team. Right then, so what can I say about this to begin with? So yeah, we're going to have a quick look at the team itself to begin with, and then we're going to have a little look at started painting them, mainly looking at the skin on both the Orcs and the Troll. It's made up of the 2016 Orc team, as well as a few players from the Black Orc team in the I got in the 2020 box set. The Orcs have waited on the sprue since I got my 2016 Blood Bowl set on release day when I was attending the Full Beard Cup at Warhammer World. Less I say about how that tournament went, the better, but needless to say, it wasn't my finest hour. And then they stayed on the sprue, as I said, until I picked up the latest box set in 2020, and now it's just the right time for me to begin work on what has been a long-awaited desire to create myself an Orc team. As I've said, I've got some of the Black Orc team players mixed in with this. I know some of you might consider that sacrilege, but it just seemed like a good use of all the extra players. I picked the setup mainly because, I know I could have just got the book with this one, but despite the fact I wasn't intending initially to use all of these the models in the box. Just looking at the two big guys, the 2-star players, the few extra little bits that I got, meant I didn't necessarily have to get the blockers from elsewhere and the goblin from elsewhere. The referees are really cool. It's value for money. It was just certainly worth getting, despite the fact I'm not actually right now this second intending to use the teams as they are in the box. So let's just have a look at a couple of them. As I said, these are actually green plastic, believe it or not. I just sprayed them. Because I'm going to be doing these fairly light in colour, grey seemed like the best colour to undercoat them with. So as for what I'm using, I've got my Fore blitzers. So it's not really showing up so well on this, but my Fore blitzers. 2 of these are actually converted from Orc linemen with a bit of green stuff and a bit of a head swap. That's the head off the what was then called the Black Orc blocker, and a couple of alterations to the arm to make him match the other one a little more. So 4 of them. I have I'll show you one, but I have the 4 Black Orcs acting as my my big and blockers. Again, I've got 4 of them. I have one of the Goblin Bruiser lineman as my Goblin player. I only took one of him, I didn't take all 4 of them. Let's face it, his only real goal in this to potentially be thrown down the field. I've gone with the thrower. You'll notice I've already started adding a bit of paint on him. I sat down to start painting the skin, and then I thought, hang on a minute, I could be doing a video of this. I've kind of not quite got into this thing of that I am trying to have a YouTube channel here. I did back in, I think it was about 2009, do a blog on Daka. It's quite well received with regards to building up a human Blood Bowl team. At that particular time, I think Blood Bowl was, I don't say on the way out, because it never really was on the way out, but from a point of view of Games Workshop, like Specialist Games were at the time, they were on the way out from becoming out of production. So that did have quite a bit of interest, as we weren't seeing so much of it at that point. So hopefully, I thought I'd bring it to my new format of creating videos, and hopefully, it will be of interest to you guys out there. So yeah, so we've taken the 4 linemen. These are the ones that left that I didn't convert into blitzers. Sure you know what they're all about now. And then we have the 2 big guys. We've got the untrained troll, as is called with this particular team. And his little goblin in hand there. And I've got the ghoul chewer himself, the big guy at the back. The current value, this is the, I'm going to do the team as a whole, ready to to play some leagues. I've just going to get it all painted and all done, so I've got it ready to go. This is the kind of thing I'd want to go with for my team. And the current value of all of that on the table, not including any endorsements or any extra little bits and pieces, rerolls and the like, is 1,315,000 gold pieces. So it's not far off. If I was to, if Games Workshop were want to run any more tournaments similar to the last ones, I'd be pretty much ready. I mean, I'll take probably one of the linemen out, or a couple of bits out, and add a few extra endorsements and stuff like that. But I'll be pretty much ready to go with this. So anyone from Workshop, if you're watching, if you're listening, let's have another Blood Bowl tournament. I'll be ready. I will be ready this time. A lot better prepared than I was before for the last two. Okay, so I think that's it as far as the sort of introduction goes and the little my little spiel at the beginning. So now we're going to move on to painting, and as already stated, today we're going to be looking at the skin of both the orcs, goblins and the troll. So I'm trying to decide on a tone to go with for the orc flesh. I've been looking at the printed materials, a lot of the artwork and photographs, and the 2020 rulebook here, they're using that sort of standard colour, they're quite rich green, in keeping with the comic style of the artwork. I'll see there's a lot of that in here. It's quite reminiscent of the 5th edition fantasy. The little comic sections always amused me. But I've decided, as I'm using brighter colours like my whites and reds on my team, I've decided to go with this sort of more earthy looking green, this more olive colour that's more present in the 2016 rulebook. So this is the one I'm going to go with. So for this, I'm going to be applying a base coat of Deathwall Forest to all of the players on my team, including the Troll and Goblin. We're demonstrating on this Blitzer because it is my favourite model in the team. A couple of notes when doing this: make sure you check the model first, as there are a few little bits of skin poking out through the areas of the armour, particularly around the joins. It's also best to make a single diluted application and repeat. If only there was a simpler, more catchier way of saying that, eh? So we're going to go all over the models, arms, face and hands. On the troll and some of the black orcs, or the big and blockers in my case, they also have sort of shins and that exposed as well, so make sure you don't miss those. Now, when base coating the skin, there's going to be a couple of other areas on these that need looking at. Now, this is the troll's scales of carapace, and it needs a Castellan green applying to these. It's worth doing it now so you can give it all the same shade. I'm just going to carefully apply this over the top. Now, you will notice that it's not too distinguishable from the other colour, but as I add the highlights and shading, they'll be easier to differentiate these two areas. And there is one more character that I must not forget about, and that'll be this little fella adorning the pauldron of Varag Ghoul Chewer, and I'm going to be applying to him a base layer of Rakarth flesh. Now, as this is Varag Ghoul Chewer, from here on in I'll be referring to this fella as Varag's Chewed Ghoul. Now, I know in Games Workshop artwork it's more traditional that the ghouls are green. However, not wanting this to clash with my orcs, I'm going to do him in a some more pallid flesh tone. So, before moving on to the shading, I'm just going to apply a dry brush of Strachan Green over the troll's scales. I know dry brushing isn't the preferred option of most painters, however I find this the quickest way to do this step, and the following stage should neaten up the dusty effect that this gives you. It's now time to break out the washes, and I'm going to be applying a 50-50 mix of Agrax Earthshade and Labium Medium onto all the areas of flesh. This includes the scales on the back of the troll. And finally, as far as washes go, I'm going to be adding a 50-50 mix of Carambo Crimson and the Lemian Medium to Varag's Chewed Ghoul. I remember this palette look was pretty much the standard of Games Workshop's fantasy ghouls. I am, however, going back a couple of decades. Time to move on to the layers, and first up I'm going to be applying a layer of Elysian Green. I'm going to keep this to the top of the raised areas, avoiding any recesses. I'm going to start with a single diluted coat, and then for my second coat I'm going to do it more in the middle to sort of bring a sharper colour up as the areas become more raised. And as discussed earlier on the troll, this lighter colour on the skin is going to help distinguish between the dark shade of the scales. And now moving on to Varag's Chewed Ghoul in much the same way as I did on the Orc flesh. I'm going to be adding another layer of Rakarth flesh, but this time avoiding all recesses and just sticking to the raised areas. And finally, some highlights on the orcs themselves. I'm going to be adding some Ogryn camo, and for this I'm going to be doing very much an edge highlight, and I'm going to be using my light as a sort of guide, and where the light is being picked up on the model I'm going to make a little application there. It's sometimes difficult to see this working when you're using this method. However, once you take it out of the light and it's dried, it'll be more clear. You may need to go over it a couple of times. And finally, we're back with the real star of the show, that is the ghoul. For this I'll be adding 2 layers of highlight. I'm going to start with Pallid Witch Flesh. I'm going to be applying this in a slightly more heavy fashion across the model. Before adding a final highlight of White Scar, and this will be more on the edges. Again, I'll be using the light as a point of reference for this phase. And that is the skin phase of our orcs completed. For anybody thinking of having a go at home, here is a list of paints. Please join us next time where we'll be looking at painting the uniforms. I'll also be discussing possible tactics. Any orc players out there want to share a few ideas, please do in the comments, as I'll be able to have a little chat about those. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, comment and subscribe. And until next time, good night.